What's up guys, it's Punchy, and today we're here with a pretty expansive showcase video discussing a ton of new information about the new Deepwoken Iron Vow game mode. In case you missed it, this is a hardcore experience that's different from base Deepwoken with permadeath and progression through taking on bosses. There's a brief overview in my recent update video, and there will be a specific guide on this mode coming out soon, but today it's all about showcases. Today, I'll be taking the time to show off each and every class in the Iron Vow game mode, currently at least, alongside the progression and how they're going to be obtained. Since this is new, and if you didn't know, the classes in the Iron Vow game mode take specific different talents, mantras, equipment, and weapons while buffing them up to make a character that's unique. The stats and content customization available for each class is kinda limited, but each of them has a role or specific gimmick they fill. Every single class has a different stat spread and investment points they're allowed to go into, but they can also roll talents which fit within these stats. Each class has unique talents, mantras, even other goodies as well, and we'll be talking about those. All of the exclusive stuff will be covered here, but your build might be different, I guess, with the regular talents you pick. Anyway, I'll do my best to be comprehensive for each, and let's get right into it. Starting with the SIGHTLESS class, its theme is all about vision. You're completely blinded while playing it, which makes visuals very rough, but the trade-off is powerful lockdown and potential payoff in combat. The core engine talent of this build is Unmended Eye, and it applies anti-heal to players whenever a mantra is landed. While they have anti-heal on them, no regen can happen at all, and it is going to activate a secondary talent called Purge Shot. So, Purge Shot boosts arc beam damage while enemies are under anti-heal, dealing true damage that bypasses resist per stack, so it pairs insanely well with the Sightless Beam plus Arc Beam combo, though those are your only damaging options. The talent Scornful Scowl massively extends Glare's stun duration, letting you chain mantra combos with ease, and it's pretty busted for combo setup as you can see. Focus Perception boosts up your Rhythm Murmur while Tranquil Circle is active. Weirdly enough, this class never even gets Tranquil Circle, so I think it's kinda bugged. The base Sightless talent also buffs your rhythm range, and that's pretty solid to start off with. With the next starter Memento, we have the most flexible with Berserker. This has access to almost any normal weapon with a little bit invested into Blood Rend, but as long as you like going Berserk, this class is going to be for you. So, as you could tell, the main talent for this class is Berserk. Pop this tool to gain 100% pen on all of your weapon attacks, but lose 100% of your armor resistance. Play perfectly and deal insane damage because that's what this class is all about. With the talent until it's done, you can cancel Berserk whenever you like, so it's really just a toggle. Moving on with Residual Fury, we buff our M1s after landing a critical, and that's a huge bonus for pen. In any interaction, as long as you're in the Berserk mode and hit a crit, that's even more damage on top of the already high base pen. Buffing up Berserk even more with Righteous Rage, your damage is buffed the lower your health is, and that's always going to be decent. So against bosses or mobs that you kind of need to clutch up against, this single damage boost could make or break your run, and it's pretty good. Next, with Ruinous Recovery, enemies recover less posture when parrying any of your attacks, and guard breaking one with your parry deals massive damage to them. This can happen in a bunch of interactions, and it complements the perfectionist gameplay suited for Berserk. Finally, with Rip and Tear, this talent just gives the player more HP when defeating an enemy, similar to a health pack, and it's nothing too special. The regen is nice, but this class is fairly basic with how it's set up. This is all about going Berserk and dealing big damage, but don't get hit. On to another starting class, we have Flame Worshipper. This is one of the most fleshed out classes in my opinion, and a lot of things have changed from the base kit it pulls from, so let's break it down. This class instantly has access to the Simmerbloom Diadem headgear, which lets the Pleatski's Inferno deal even more DPS with flame ticks on an M1. If you want to grab that, head over to Miner's Landing and pick up the Pleatskis, since it's pretty good. Besides that, this class has new exclusive talents alongside altered mantras, so they're worth mentioning as new content. With the talent Flames of the Past, each mantra spawns flame puppets that track onto enemies, very similar to Twisted Puppets. So, as you can see, this is almost exactly the same as the base game, but faster. It's extremely solid for more damage and pressure, and this is very good. True Mirage Clone is similar, being an improved version of the base dodge talent from the base game. Just like the original talent, dodging somebody means dealing more damage and lighting them on fire. It's almost the same thing, but I think the stats are a little bit upgraded. Now, with the new Survival talent, you can use Ascended Phoenix Flames to automatically revive at low HP, and this is kinda busted. When you get to a certain health threshold, you can instantly pop back up, and it can kinda be obnoxious compared to other classes without any healing mechanics. Additionally, a talent called Pleaksky's Wrath drops down First Light swords after dealing massive mantra damage, and it's effectively free DPS. This will happen a lot in this game mode, and it's just a passive buff that shreds through enemies just for playing the game and using your mantras. Let's discuss some of the mantras because they aren't just normal, they're new or modified. Burning Servants has the Reversal Spark innately, and they're way faster than normal. Relentless Flames is also extremely fast when landed, Flame Assault is near unreactable but does less damage, and Flame Leap only has the AoE blast part, not the actual jump. They can be used very differently in this class, but it's worth mentioning. Now, with Hell's Judgment, this new mantra is kinda busted. The iframe grab deals damage to players with a burn and forces them to roll it off to remove the tick. It's impossible to wait out the timer, you have to dodge to remove the flame. Besides that, it buffs the player, granting flame M1s that spawn are clones, and this is crazy for damage. Overall, this starter class is probably one of the most busted, and it's very powerful to just spam mantras. Moving on to Rogue Assassin, this is your assassination stealth class. The exclusive item we get access to is the new Hired Knife outfit with the Bane teleporting M1 talent alongside Big Brother for assassination criticals. Onto talents, the base talent Rogue Assassin lets you deal an extra boost of true damage on an assassination, and it's kinda cracked with the Big Brother critical. Lethal Depressant plays off of assassinations as well, decreasing the damage the opponent deals if one lands. Overall, this won't be too insane because you already have the initiative in combat, forcing them to defend, but the duration and potency of the damage debuff might be a bit strong. Additionally, Fatal Backstab is just the backstab talent from the original game, dealing an extra boost of true damage on the kickback. Essentially, all you gotta do is hit a back hit M1 and deal more damage. It's the Authority talent upgraded. Tasset becomes a little bit better with the use of Ambush. After coming out of your Tasset bubble, you get a damage bonus, and that's always going to be useful with any combo or setup. It's just a free boost. Now it's time for the nonsense. It's time to mix up players for free by reducing our sound. The talent True Skulk reduces the mantra cast sound, and Total Silent does the same for footsteps and dodges. Moving around isn't really a problem, but this mantra thing is nuts for catching players off guard who are used to the base combat, since the windups and sound effects, they're gonna be different. For mobility, we can get Double Jump, which is essentially wind step without the sound or visual. I wish we could see what this looks like and even how it performs, but Double Jump just doesn't work. Finally, to buff up on one of our mantras, we have the talent Terrifying Paralysis that is insanely powerful. Landing Hidden Blade disables your enemy's ability to roll for a set duration, and that's kinda busted for lockdown. Once you get up close with this, they can't escape. We'll see how this class goes, but I think it's gonna be very hit or miss, busted or underpowered depending on the situation. Weakening Venom also reduces damage players deal after being hit by Hidden Blade, and it's kinda free. As an add-on bonus, we get Avaricious Blade. Every strike landed lines your pockets, and in-game, if we hit humanoid enemies, we can get money, and this is peak for progression. Beginning today, with a new starter memento for the Vow of Iron, we have the Spear Dancer. So, using either a spear or a twin blade, these guys are all about their range and their weapon tip or hitbox. With Dancer's Gios, the tip of our weapon deals bonus damage, but regular attacks are nerfed. So, the buff here is sizable, but you gotta understand your range if you really want to get cooking. There's a visual that indicates if your range is accurate and if it isn't landing within the edge of your hitbox, so keep that in mind. Dancer's Sting also buffs up your tip or hitbox, dealing chip damage and pen on a hit. You really want to be landing those hits because it's almost essential for maintaining your high DPS. So the talent Gay Build A, I think that's what it's called, backstabs also count as the tip of your weapon and deal that bonus as well. It's solid for boss fights if you can actually rotate around them, and decent against enemies at mid-range. With the talent Two Left Feet, posture breaking opponents gives you a bonus pen on regular attacks, but this, it's just decent. There's not too much to say about this except it bypasses more resistance. Now with God Dirg, if you proc bleed on an enemy in any case and strike them with the tip of your spear, the bleed is gonna extend and repeat. This can be pretty crazy for output, especially against those bosses that don't really move, and your DPS is gonna be nice if you keep the bleed cycle going. With Dancer's Sanchez Impale, if you hit an enemy after dodging, you deal bleed damage right after, and otherwise you deal chip damage if it already had innate bleed. It's decent for catching enemies, but it's really going to be great for actually activating Deer. The talent, Dancer's Beat, replaces your initial vent with a buff. You increase the speed and stats of your next light attack, but if it whiffs, your end lag is punished as well, so make sure you're landing your hits. This buff can also work with criticals with Kick the Beat. There's also a talent that just gives this hyper armor, and it's pretty good since you can tank an attack and just parry out of a combo. Finally, with Gabolg, a mantra, we throw a javelin that afflicts our enemies and places a new status on them. So hitting them once deals even more damage, and it's a solid payoff option that rewards pretty aggressive play. Overall, this class seems really interesting, but it has both upsides and downsides to think about in combat. Moving on to a slowdown pressure class, we got Saint J. It's not too flashy and it's fairly simple, but it makes up for this with its lockdown potential. The really interesting part about Saint J is the title you can obtain and the weapon that comes alongside it. As the Saint J Memento, you'll see the title Saint pop up next to your name, and that's kinda clean. Anyway, let's discuss Saint J's hammer. The M1s for this weapon aren't anything too crazy, and it's basically a reskinned version of the Hailbreaker. It isn't my favorite critical to use, but the talents here make up for that downside. Using Bulwark Breaker, this buffs up our Pressure Blast hitbox, but the real talent that carries is Reverse Necrosis. Landing any mantra will now heal you based on how slow your target is, and this can happen at any point. It's very easy to get buffs after landing some chill or slow or anything, and it's a passive that you don't have to worry about activating. Anyway, with the kit, let's break it down. You'll notice that Saint J gets a ton of value from using Orbital Ice. This talent grants resistance after parrying on your own ice, lets you spread ice while sliding with Glacial Coasting, and has next to no downside if you bottom freeze with your outfit's refreeze talents. So keep that in mind for the rest of the talents here. We want to be using bottom freeze as much as possible. Jay's Judgment Gavel grants bonus HP if you hit a frozen enemy with your critical, and it's pretty decent. So with Rebuke in Stasis, you can bottom freeze players when building up your punishment. This is a simple but very effective boost to the mantra, making sure people can't run away after you counter their attack. Now, as a bonus talent, Frost Ride lets the player freeze water whenever they walk on top. Honestly, because Orbital Ice is such an integral part of your kit with the resistance and refreezing with bottom freeze, you might as well run on the water and fight on top. This class is simple but effective at doing this job, and I think it's pretty interesting. The Ether Erudite is all about Ether. You can pair it up with any weapon your stats allow, and it even gives you a unique enchant to put on one of them. Ether Surge, the enchant, builds stacks, and when it procs, you get a burst of infinite ether for a short duration. So it's basically Hikari's Jackpot as an enchant, and it's pretty cool. For a supporting mantra, we also get Neural Pathway for movement, and the rest of the mantras are going to be shown alongside the talents, since they kind of flow together. Also, I forgot to mention, the Ether Erudite class has special looking mantras that are kind of green, kind of blue, and I think it looks really cool. Ether Erudite gives bonus damage based on your total ether and lets you build stacks during combat that modify certain mantras. You can gain these stacks in several different ways, and it's kind of your engine. So, for example, Ether Quell gives you an Ether Erudite stack every single time you land a crit or guard break. It's especially strong on weapons that reliably trigger these, and certain mantras help you build stacks even faster. Ether Reflex works with prediction, giving the user stacks when a successful counter is landed. In parry trades, this is a great way to replenish your resources, and it's very easy to land. Now, let's talk about using the stacks. Ether Amplification is a good example of how stacks buff your kit. Each stack increases the size and damage of your Pressure Blast. The difference is huge. A basic Pressure Blast versus a stacked one isn't even close. Ether Blitz consumes a stack whenever you use Master's Flourish, reducing its windup. It's noticeably faster, and if you keep your Erudite stacked up, this can snowball pretty hard. Barrage Mastery scales off your Ether Barrage, giving you extra orbs based on your stacks. Seeing up to 6 additional shots is kinda wild, and it's gonna pump out bonus burst damage whenever it lands. Finally, the talent Ether Burst ties into Rapid Slashes, applying a status called Ether Overflow on hit. It deals bonus damage based on how many ether stacks you've built, consuming all of them when it lands. It's a satisfying mechanic, and with this class, you earn a build-up, then cash it out for a pretty big payoff. You can obtain this class by heading to an NPC in the depths with every single base deep gem in the game, not including the Gaunt or event ones. Up next, with a fairly simple class, we have THEROS Disciple. Essentially, this class starts with Blightsurger's kit alongside some of its mantras and weapons, but it's really good as a normal Gale and Thunder build. Anyway, as I mentioned, we start with the Sovereign Bangle Fist weapon and Imperium Kata as well. Nothing different happens with the weapon by itself, but we can also use Blightsurger in its full capacity, as well as the Wither M1s like we would normally in the base game. Besides that, the main engine for this build can be found with the Spark of THEROS. This talent buffs all of our Thundercall mantras, turning them white and allowing them to wither on hit. The buffed mantras listed are Lightning Cloak, Emotion Wave, and Rising Thunder, each dealing bonus wither on hit. Although wither isn't too overpowered, it's decent in this game mode since healing can be pretty high, and we can apply a lot with Blightsurger and our mode. Now, with Storm Return, if you're under a Gale or Lightning status effect, your M1s and criticals deal even more damage. This is a decent buff, and it can also happen in the Lightning Cloak state, so that's free damage. Finally, THEROS Disciple also has access to Windfall, a massive AoE mantra on a few different Vow classes and the Tidus Wardens. This hitbox is just massive and good for ragdolling targets, but its damage isn't that powerful. To unlock the Disciple class, you gotta first defeat Young Tidus, and that's it. Up next, with another new Memento, we got Flashing Thunder. Although this class is fairly flashy, it's quite simple, revolving around Katana and an upgraded Poser's Ring. Unfortunately, we're still gonna be blind on this class. With the talent Gathering Storm, all damage dealt is stored in your Poser's Ring as lightning orbs. So the more damage you deal with mantras or your own blade, it turns into a Thunder Orb, and it's gonna deal even more damage based on how many orbs are being stored. This can do a ton of damage if fully maxed out at 8 orbs, but also these orbs can buff us up as well. Electrical Accumulation says having 4 or more orbs automatically gives charges of Static Blade, giving you a decent speed boost and electrical damage on your M1s. If you store up your damage, hitting blocks builds this very quickly, so it might be worth holding on to. Another buffing feature of orbs is shown with Air of Lightning. So at a maximum of 8 orbs, you can upgrade and improve your Lightning Cloak. It's pretty difficult to get 8 orbs, but I think if you're already winning, it buffs the duration and speed you move with the cloak. Finally, to finish things off, Orb Discharge is going to use up an orb to substitute for tempo if you don't have any and you need to vent. This is overall really strong for staying alive with that stored damage, and it's a solid, simple class. It's very good at confirming damage and shredding through PvE bosses that have phases, and I think it's worth using. To unlock this class, you gotta beat the Rat King on the SIGHTLESS Memento. Up next with Breaker, this class is all about throwing hands. You spawn in with the wind-up bell and you'll be spamming your strong left too, and that's the entire engine for this build. With Shattering Left, your strong left and wind-up will always guard break mobs that block, and it's fairly strong. With a boss like the Rat King or other humanoids that require posture to be broken, it could be kinda peak. Also, alongside this, with Calamity Punch, you can build up stacks, and with Dormant Strength, you can use these stacks, and this releases a stronger strong left after they land. All you gotta do is hit your strong lefts to buff it up, and the output is kinda nice when used. This is the most important part of the kit, and yeah, just keep using your windups and strong left. Using Threefold Impact, if you keep building up stacks with your strong left, it's gonna continue to get stronger with each hit. After landing a first hit, the cooldown is reduced, a second ignores armor, and the third increases damage and always guard breaks. So instead of just the single buff at the end, it's a little bit better and ramps up in flexibility. With Relentless Barrage, if you build up your strong left stacks, you can instead use them with rapid punches, gaining hyper armor. This makes the mantra super difficult to deal with, especially with the removal of auto parry frames, so watch out because it might be great for lockdown. On top of all this, as a pretty small bonus, Breakthrough also increases the posture damage of your fist light attacks, and that's about it. It's nothing too crazy, but since we actually get Ardor, this is gonna cook. To obtain Breaker, you can unlock this by defeating Primadon. Next up for our classes is the Steampunk Soldier. So this class doesn't have as much exclusive content since it mainly builds off existing Steam hybrid talents, but it does come with a unique new weapon with the Vapor Maw Carbine. When you crouch, you can press R to load up your bullets, and after they're loaded, you can press R again to unleash all of them in a machine gun barrage. So there's no elements for this, it's just pure bullet spam, and it's really crazy. But the standout exclusive mantra is going to be Steam Grenade. After using this, you spawn a massive effective damaging steam cloud that does consistent DPS, and it's really giant. This pairs up perfectly with the base steam talents as well, and it can also be used alongside your exclusive class talents. The base talent, Steampunk Soldier, increases the size of any steam clouds when using Flash Boil or triggered by any steam effect, and it also reduces the cooldown. In combos, you can proc this constantly and activate steam multiple times, making it great for raw DPS and explosions. If you're using a flame mantra to explode these clouds with Boiling Point, you can also activate Mist Mobility. Every steam cloud explosion boosts your critical reload speed and ramps up its fire rate, and it can get pretty crazy. As you can see, our rifle shoots extremely fast after an explosion. Whether you trigger it from up close or from range, this is always going to be good. Finally, there's also Explosive Ignition, which lets Produce Spark detonate any steam cloud, and that's exactly as wild as it sounds. So up close, you can pop these blasts whenever you want for extremely consistent damage payoff, and this is really fun. If you really like dealing explosive damage and burst stuff with steam, pick up the Steampunk Soldier. To obtain this memento, we gotta beat a boss with a gun or a rifle. Meet the Drifter, one of the coolest mementos in Iron Vow. It's a very dodge-heavy class built around observation, slipping behind enemies, so there's a lot packed in here, and let's dive in. As a Drifter, you start with the Purple Cloud, your main endgame weapon, now enhanced with Switchblade and Dagger talents that boost criticals and flourishes. It can also awaken later, but we'll get into that. Drifter has no unique mantras and leans almost entirely on talents with upsides and downsides. For starters, Lackluster Guard lowers our posture, and Drift replaces parry with a new dodge-style defense. Pressing F lets you drift through attacks, moving forward with extended iframes, but at the same time, blocking anything is super punishing. Also, Faster Blade, a new talent, gives you a speed boost after a successful drift parry, and that's always going to be good. Besides our new parries, we also have access to new dodges above 90% ether with Blink Step. Blink Step gives upgraded dodges while using them above 90% ether and greatly extends both air and ground dashes with your Q. Additionally, Blink Step gets a buff with Cutting Pace. A successful Blink Step dodge buffs mantra damage and wind up, turning them purple and giving a strong offensive boost, so you get rewarded for using your Q to dodge. True Drifter helps further, doubling the obtainment of your Cutting Pace stacks and lets you spend those stacks instead of ether to activate Blink Step below 90% ether. It makes your dodge engine smoother and stronger. With this insane mobility and gap closing potential, we can also use Twin Drift, which buffs up our Spine Cutter and spawns clones to deal even more damage. Twin Drift amplifies Spine Cutter and summons twins after back hits from dodge cancels, applying burst damage when you slip behind opponents and punish them. Finally, let's unleash the true power of the Purple Cloud with Drifting Cloud. So anytime you can get Cutting Pace stacks, dodging damage with Blink Step, our blade awakens. As you can see, this is what the Purple Cloud looks like without its sheath, and it even has an insane unsheath and swing animation. Besides that, its swing speed is extremely fast and better than normal, but it's really good up close and it's pretty clean. Also, hitting players with this Drifting Cloud forces their posture to go up as you deal damage, and that is just ridiculous for pressure. Anyway, to fully unlock this memento on further runs, you gotta defeat any boss without taking a single hit of damage, which is simple but difficult to execute and definitely worth the challenge. Onto another simple yet effective class, we have the Prince of Moon. With this memento, we spawn in as a Lightborn, which is already visually cool. This race is purely cosmetic and doesn't add anything to the gameplay, but it's good regardless. This memento doesn't have too much, but it gets access to Shadowcast, Chain Warden, and is probably going to be the best possible output for anything PvE. The damage is just ridiculous. Starting with the Soulthorn weapon, the talent Soul Veil directly buffs the damage on the Soulthorn by landing hits and deletes stacks when you take damage. As you can see, we can build up this crazy Soul Veil shown with this cloak, and it simply buffs our Soulthorn damage. The output here can get out of hand quickly, and it's just so solid. It's sort of like Chain of Perfection, but just for the Soulthorn itself. Speaking of which, the Chain of Perfection is active on this memento, setting it apart from some of the rest, because some of these classes don't even get it. This is extremely powerful in this game mode for chunking down enemies with Chain of Perfection, with Soul Veil, with stacking Restrain. It's crazy. With the final part of Prince of the Moon, we get access to a mantra called Trance, a wave-based AoE attack that inflicts hit stun and gives the user healing. Anytime this lands, it's gonna give us a bunch of free HP, and it's extremely difficult to escape if it hits you. That's all for the exclusive items and special highlights for this class. Let's discuss the obtainment. To actually obtain this memento, you gotta pick up the Blessing of the Moon from the Moon's Eyrie, which is kinda far in the Void Sea, and beat 3 different main bosses under Max Insanity. Moving on to Iron Vessel, this is one of the craziest classes in the game with one of the most insane downsides. You can straight up tank everything depending on what you fight, or you might get infinitely comboed entirely, so let's just get into it. Iron Vessel has an extremely tanky Iron Sync talent setup and even spawns with a special version of the Fractine. This is the Ferractine and has some built-in talents alongside critical changes. On a hit, it does the same sort of damage, but it won't turn into the dagger version of the Fractine, always staying as the heavy instead. Anyway, this Ferractine has the talent Blade Threading, which slows enemies with a crit hit and places a rod as well. Additionally, using Reforged Alloy to consume iron rods with a metal pull will also reduce the cooldown of your crit heavily, and this is what you want to be spamming on this build. Now, when it comes to the class-specific talents, there isn't too much to discuss, but they swap up your gameplay heavily. So for starters, Steel Vessel says you normally don't take any damage but gain posture instead, and posture breaks deal a ton of damage. When I'm hit by any damaging attacks, it's stored in my character until my posture is broken. Instead of taking damage directly, my posture builds up when I do take that damage, and it can result in a ton of HP if I'm guard broken. This massively changes the way we interact in fights and can be hard to work around with multi-hit classes that stun. Anyway, it's cool but very punishing. To add on top with Alloy Siphon, pulling players with Iron Sync pulls restores a portion of your posture, and it's gonna do that. On this memento, you gotta make use of your pulls strategically, since posture is directly impacting your HP if you get guard broken. With a small talent to just stay alive in PvE, Alloy of the Heavens reduces posture taken from mobs, and this is great. Finally, with a new exclusive mantra, we have Iron Confinement. Using this mantra, we spawn a box that traps players inside and pierces them with spikes, and it's breakable with enough hits. On this class, it's very powerful for serious damage and lockdown, especially if you slow people, and you want to be using this with Iron Vessel whenever you can. To unlock this class, you just gotta beat the Shogun. On to our next class, we got a crazy one with the Inheritor of the Gale. This is essentially Gale Breath Gojo that's all about Spectre Path, mobility, and deals insane damage with new mantras, and let's talk about it. With an outstanding starting talent, it isn't new, but it's kinda nuts to just have. For our Gojo Infinity, we start off with Whistle Guard, granting us iframes after hitting some M1s. This is generally considered one of the best talents in the entire game for anything, and it negates anything thrown at us that's parryable. We don't even have to use an equipment, we just have Whistle Guard. During the time of this video, Whistle Guard got removed from this class. I don't know if it's a bug or intended, but it might not even be a part of it. This class doesn't have any new talents, but we have a ton of mantras and there's a couple to break down. With Hollow Wraith, we can unleash a damaging orb of wind straight forward, shooting out Spectre Ghosts as well. The damage potential here is actually overpowered. It might be the highest damage in the entire game, and this is going to be our Hollow Purple. Next, onto Wind Vortex. This is our blue, pulling targets in from a distance and applying pretty good pressure. The damage here isn't low on this attack either, and it's pretty solid if you're moving around poking from a distance. Now to finish things off with our red, we have Windfall. This is a pretty big wind AoE blast that's on a few different classes in the Valve Iron, but it can also be found on the Titus Wardens. This is extremely fast with a massive hitbox, and it pushes players away and hurts their block. To unlock this class, you gotta head over to the estate in Mintrisa and pick up the level 15 Apostle and Shogun jobs. These will lead you to Etris, where you have to fight a Gale using Fist NPC alongside a smaller Gale Shogun, and doing that unlocks the class. Moving on to another new class, we have the Soulborn. This will probably be a ton of people's favorites because it's so flashy, but it's a Flame Charm based Phoenix that has the power to fly. On this memento, you spawn in with the Heladar race and a Flame Hero Blade, and this has a lot of equipment that we can use. The race is pretty cool and flashy since it used to be a dev limited thing, and it even has a special talent as well. The race talent from the Ashes grants you a resist and a damage buff when drinking from an Etris flask if you're at low HP, so it's overall pretty clutch and a solid improvement from just using one at base. With another generic buff with an item on this class that works with anything, Pyroborn increases the damage dealt with all fire and flame abilities. In application, it really is a direct stat increase, but the difference is pretty massive with and without this item. Alright, with all the normal things out of the way, it's finally time to discuss the main engine for this build. You'll notice with the SOLBORN class, this has a bar above its HP, and this is the Heartfire gauge. This can be used and built up in combat, and it has a few different purposes, but keep in mind it's always going to drain during the night. To build up this meter, we can actually do a few different things. Heartfire Renewal allows the player to earn Heartfire gauge by taking burn damage or just restoring a lot when reviving with Phoenix Flames. These are generally just bonus ways to earn back your Heartfire gauge, but it is a decent build up inside combat if you're willing to take that risk. The main way to actually keep your Heartfire gauge charged is with our Phoenix. As a Soulborn, we actually get the capability to summon a giant Phoenix that changes in size and power as we level up. Summoning the Phoenix is free, and this can happen anywhere. This lets us heal and charge up our Heartfire gauge, but it can also be used in combat. While your Phoenix is active and flying around, you can also gain meter by landing flame attacks with Ignition Right. This is very powerful for refilling your resources, and it's gonna always be active during combat. If you recast your Phoenix aiming nearby an enemy, it's gonna swoop down and slam into them for a blast of damage. Besides that, we can also use Heliodar Flight with our Heart gauge. Activating these wings gives us better dashes, just like Star Kindred, and automatically lets us use Kindred abilities with less windup. And if you do press H with some meter, you can fly around at the cost of some of your bar. This is actually insane. It's Ether Fly without any restriction. Just make sure you have your Heartfire up. On the other hand, in combat, Burning Soul is going to buff up your mantras while your gauge is active. This sort of buff can be size, duration, a range buff, but it modifies your mantras without touching the damage. This class also has Ascended Phoenix Flames for that extra revive bonus, and it's pretty free. You can unlock this by beating Lord Regent the final fight on a slot that hasn't drowned 3 times, but it's probably going to get easier, and it's seen some changes recently, so I wouldn't count on this. Next up for the depth skankers is the Void Glutton. This class focuses on wiping players in the depths and scales extremely hard in PvP with a kit centered on tanking and low mobility. It has no exclusive mantras, but several are modified through its talents. The main talent, Void Glutton, gives instant ether when you wipe a player in the depths and adds permanent HP to your build. To balance it out, you're constantly slowed, and the slow increases as your depths kills and stolen HP stack on top. Eruption Shade increases the size of Shadow Eruption based on how much permanent HP you have stolen. More wipes means a larger hitbox that can get out of control quickly, and this is really good for sniping players. Additionally, Dark Harvest turns Shadow Vortex into a hunger stealing tool. So it sounds pretty cool, right? But it doesn't even work properly due to the vaulting of this move. Next, with Ether Repletion, any hunger stolen from players grants Ether, which is decent to say the least. Next, with Hardy Ether, Devouring Eye now heals you based on the Ether stolen. Since you move slowly, this helps you lock down an area and keep yourself alive, which is going to be extremely strong. Finally, to wrap up with all this hunger and ether stealing, we can use Null Recovery. Null Recovery spends 20% of your hunger to instantly restore HP, giving you a reliable sustain tool for long fights in the depths. Void Glutton is a tanky, scaling powerhouse built for depth skanking, fueled by hunger theft, ether gain, and heavy sustain. I believe the way to obtain this class is by gripping 25 people in the depths, I think it's only in the depths, and then beating at least phase 1 of the region fight. It's a little bit confusing here what exactly it's all about, but it may change in the future, and this method, it worked for me. With Strange Merchant, this class is all about charm, gambling, and chance, so if you want to mess around with any weapon, it's probably worth using. Instantly, we gain access to the Levitt aspect on this slot, allowing us to use Retrograde. This ability is busted, letting us place a checkpoint for our HP and position, reversing all changes to that after a certain period, and it's pretty nice. Instantly, you'll notice on this character, we have a special accessory with the Magic Coffin on our back. Besides its unique appearance, it has a use, and it's going to be a massive part of progressing our gear. As a jack of all trades, ignore all attribute requirements on anything and equip any weapon or gear and activate our magic coffin like a bell. So by pressing C, we can summon a portable mystery box for some notes that instantly delivers us anything in that pool and is perfect for gamblers that want to buff up their build. The loot gets a direct upgrade with know when to run, improving the loot chances on our coffin at the cost of a price increase. Additionally, to keep our funds high with Deal Maker, this lets us sell anything everything for a higher base price, which is very effective in this game mode since everything revolves around nodes. Anyway, let's discuss the actual gameplay of the class. The engine of this build, Compelling Offer, applies a new status called Madness for anyone charmed under half HP and forces them to lash out and attack anyone else but you. Besides this, Taunt also ramps up with its multiplier the more you hit it, and it's pretty decent. In PvE, you'll notice that charmed enemies oftentimes freak out and stop attacking you, and that's all Madness in effect. Taunt, on the other hand, will keep on stacking and increasingly buff up its effectiveness if you keep using it in combat. So specifically for Taunt players, Stack the Deck speeds up the multiplier process against charmed enemies, and the gameplay loop is pretty much the same, just charm them and taunt for more effect. With the talent Sweeten the Deal, we can reduce the amount of HP required to proc Madness, but it instantly becomes obsolete with Voice of the Mad God that instantly maddens on charm. It's very simple but effective with these talents, but they kind of become unnecessary at an endgame. Finally, with Jackpot, any charmed enemy will have a chance to take double damage, and this is kind of insane. If there's a bleed explosion that happens, damage is doubled, and that's busted for PvE and PvP, especially when your multipliers are stacked. Anyway, you can unlock this memento by spending a ton of money. I think it's 5 box openings at any mystery box. On the selection menu, there is a locked class, but it's either unobtainable or currently not available to unlock, so it's not even something we can really use. And for right now, that's about it for the Iron Vow showcase in Deepwoken. I'm sure there's even more info out there about each class and how they're used, but this is a brief breakdown on all of the skills and mantras and a guide to understanding what to pick. I hope this taught you something new, and comment below if it did. Thanks once again to all the supporters who motivate me daily and directly help out this channel. If you want to join as a member, go down below, but besides that, my personal Discord, Guild Discord, and my UGC group are all linked, so check them out. Thanks once again, and make sure to like and subscribe. It's punchin' time.